In the early hours before dawn, when the world is at its quietest and the sea is little more than a black mirror, a new kind of warfare is unfolding. It's not the thunder of cannons or the roar of jet engines that signals the start of battle, but the silent hum of technology, the flicker of a satellite feed, and the click of a mouse in a distant operations room. This is the story of how Ukraine, a nation fighting for its survival, turned the tables on one of the world's most formidable naval powers, not with overwhelming force, but with ingenuity, patience, and a secret tactic that would leave military analysts around the globe stunned. For decades, the Russian Navy has been a symbol of power and intimidation in the Black Sea. Its warships, bristling with advanced weaponry and electronic defenses, have long been considered nearly untouchable by smaller adversaries. The message was clear. Any attempt to challenge Russian dominance at sea would be met with swift and devastating retaliation. But in the fog of war, assumptions can be dangerous, and in 2025, Ukraine proved that even the most powerful fleets can be vulnerable to a well-executed plan. The operation began not with a dramatic launch or a sudden strike, but with weeks of meticulous observation. Ukrainian defense intelligence, aware of the threat posed by Russian warships equipped with long-range cruise missiles, knew that a direct confrontation would be suicide. Instead, they turned to the tools of the 21st century: commercial satellites, high-altitude drones, and encrypted communications. Every movement of the Russian corvettes was tracked, every deviation from standard protocol noted. The Ukrainians watched as the Russian ships, confident in their superiority, began to cut corners, patrolling without escorts, lingering in supposedly safe base, and relying on their advanced radar systems to keep them safe. It was in these patterns, these small lapses in discipline, that Ukraine saw opportunity. The secret tactic they would employ was not a new weapon or a revolutionary technology, but a method, a way of thinking that combined old-school military cunning with the latest in digital warfare. The plan was simple in concept but devilishly complex in execution. Use stealth, deception, and artificial intelligence to blind the enemy, then strike with precision before they could react. The target was a Russian Buyan M-class corvette, a ship designed for coastal dominance and armed with Kalibr cruise missiles capable of striking targets hundreds of miles inland. For Ukraine, disabling even one of these ships would mean saving countless lives and buying precious time for its cities and infrastructure. But the corvette was a tough nut to crack. Its radar could track hundreds of targets, its electronic warfare suite could jam incoming threats, and its close-in weapon systems could unleash a storm of firepower at anything that got too close. So how do you defeat a ship that seems invincible? The answer, as Ukraine would demonstrate, lies in understanding not just the enemy's strengths, but their weaknesses, their routines, their blind spots, and their overconfidence. The first step was to gather intelligence. Using commercial Maxar satellites, Ukrainian analysts pinpointed the exact location of the corvette as it patrolled Tamryuk Bay. At the same time, a Bayraktar TB2 drone loitered high above, streaming real-time video back to command. Over the course of 96 hours, a pattern emerged. The Russian ship was operating alone, without the protection of a frigate escort, and its patrol schedule was predictable. This was the opening Ukraine needed. 30 miles from the target, a special operations unit prepared for the mission. Their weapon of choice was the UJ-26 Bomber, a lightweight stealthy drone designed to fly low and fast, skimming the surface of the sea to avoid detection. But the real innovation was not in the drone itself, but in how it would be controlled. Direct radio signals are limited by the curvature of the Earth, a problem for any operator trying to guide a drone over the horizon. Ukraine's solution was elegant: a two-drone relay system, with one drone circling high above as a communications relay, and the attack drone flying just 40 feet above the water. Commands were sent via encrypted Starlink satellite link to the relay drone, which then transmitted them to the bomber below. This setup allowed for uninterrupted control from hundreds of miles away, bypassing the limitations of traditional radio. As the operation unfolded, every detail was carefully managed. The bomber's composite body gave it a radar signature smaller than a dinner plate, making it nearly invisible to the ship's powerful sensors. Its thermal camera picked out the corvette's hot engine exhaust against the cold sea, guiding it ever closer to its target. On the Russian ship, the crew was alert but unprepared for what was coming. Their defenses were formidable, but they depended on early warning from the radar, a system that, thanks to the bomber's low altitude and stealthy approach, would not detect the threat until it was too late. At precisely 4:45 a.m., the first alarm was raised, not by the ship's advanced systems, but by a Russian reconnaissance drone operator who spotted a fast-moving contact on the surface. The corvette's captain reacted instantly, ordering evasive maneuvers and activating the electronic warfare suite. But the bomber was controlled via satellite, immune to the jamming signals. The first drone's mission was not to sink the ship, but to blind it. Its warhead, a 2-pound fragmentation charge, was designed to destroy the radar array with a focused blast of shrapnel. In the final seconds, the drone's onboard AI took over, locking onto the radar's heat signature and guiding the warhead to a perfect hit. The result was immediate and devastating. The radar was destroyed, the ship was blind, and its automated defenses were crippled. The crew switched to manual control, but tracking a small, fast-moving drone through smoke and darkness was nearly impossible. The second bomber, following just behind, encountered a new challenge. The explosion had created a cloud of superheated gas, blinding its thermal camera. But the Ukrainian operators had planned for this. The drone switched to autonomous mode, using preloaded 3D maps and predictive algorithms to find its target. As the second bomber drone entered the chaos left by the first strike, the situation on board the Russian corvette had shifted from tense vigilance to outright panic. The bridge was awash in red emergency lights, the air thick with the acrid smell of burning electronics, and the shouts of officers scrambling to regain control. The ship's most vital sensor was gone, its automated defenses rendered useless, and the crew was forced to rely on their own eyes and reflexes, an impossible task against a threat designed to be nearly invisible. But the Ukrainian operators, hundreds of miles away, were calm. They had anticipated this very moment. The second drone, now flying blind through the thermal washout, was not lost. Its onboard AI, trained on countless hours of simulated naval engagements, switched seamlessly to a backup targeting mode. Using the last known position and speed of the corvette, the drone's computer calculated a new intercept course, predicting where the ship would be in the next critical seconds. This was not just a display of technological prowess, but a testament to the power of preparation and adaptability, a hallmark of Ukraine's evolving approach to modern warfare. On the deck of the corvette, sailors manned their stations with grim determination. The gunnery officer, now operating in manual mode, peered through a thermal sight, desperately searching for the incoming threat. The ship's AK-630M2 Duet cannons, capable of unleashing a torrent of 30mm shells, were now only as effective as the human hands guiding them. The tension was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity as the crew waited for a glimpse of the enemy. Suddenly, the second bomber emerged from the haze, its composite body reflecting almost no radar signal, its small size making it a difficult target even for the most skilled gunner. The Russian sailors opened fire with assault rifles and machine guns, the staccato bursts echoing across the water. But the rounds bounced harmlessly off the drone's lightweight frame, designed to absorb and deflect small arms fire. The AI-guided drone adjusted its trajectory, weaving through the defensive fire with inhuman precision. In the operations room in Ukraine, the team watched the data stream in real time. The drone sensors, now clear of the thermal cloud, locked onto the corvette's hull. The AI calculated the optimal impact point, just above the waterline where the ship's armor was thinnest. With a final burst of speed, the bomber closed the distance. The warhead detonated, punching a 2-foot hole in the hull and sending a shockwave through the ship's forward compartments. Seawater poured in, and the corvette began to list, its engine straining as the crew fought to stabilize the vessel. The attack had lasted less than 10 minutes, but its impact would be felt for months. 2 drones, costing less than $1,000 combined, had effectively neutralized a $60 million warship. More importantly, The ship's 8-caliber cruise missiles, each worth nearly $1 million, were now useless. Without the destroyed radar, the missiles could not be launched, and the ship's offensive capability was crippled. For Ukraine, this was not just a tactical victory, but a strategic masterstroke. But the true genius of the operation lay not in the hardware, but in the thinking behind it. Ukraine's secret tactic was not a single weapon or a classified technology, but a philosophy. Exploit the enemy's routines, use their confidence against them, and strike where they least expect it. The Russians had relied on their technological superiority, believing that their ships were safe as long as their sensors were active and their defenses were online. Ukraine turned that assumption on its head, using stealth, AI, and relentless preparation to create a window of vulnerability. This approach was a stark contrast to traditional naval doctrine, which often emphasizes overwhelming force and direct confrontation. Instead, Ukraine embraced asymmetry, using small, inexpensive systems to achieve outsized effects. The bomber drones were not designed to sink ships outright, but to disable and disrupt, forcing the enemy to fight on Ukraine's terms. By blinding the corvette and then striking with precision, Ukraine demonstrated that even the most advanced warships could be rendered helpless by a well-coordinated attack. The aftermath of the operation sent shockwaves through naval circles worldwide. Defense analysts pored over satellite images of the damaged corvette, limping back to port, its deck scarred and its radar mast shattered. Military planners in capitals from Washington to Beijing took note. The age of the invulnerable warship was over. In its place was a new era, where agility, innovation, and adaptability would determine the outcome of battles at sea.